everyone has a drug and everyone has a god. So whether it's like alcohol or drugs or like relationships or sex or whatever it is, everyone's got something they run to keep them going. And I want that thing for me to be something that's not detrimental to me, something that builds me up, something that satisfies me, and for me that's Jesus.
Everyone loves rap.
It's the voice of our generation.
It's the music they know, it's the music they love.
Christianity is not about being perfect, it never has been.
People are scared to be rejected.
It's the most popular genre of music ever.
It's not all about sex.
I remember RG.
Everyone loves rap.
Gospel rap is very powerful.
Christianity is not about being perfect. It never has been.
I remember RG.
Yes, so when I hear rap music, the first thing that pops up to me is the culture. It's not even the music itself, it's the culture that represents the music. So I think about the cars, I think about the women, I think about the money and all of these things that I normally would associate with rap as a culture, as opposed to the actual music. And I think that's a funny thing to say, that it's not even the lyrics or the beat that stands out, but rather it's the culture that comes with it.
Fast-paced, often quickly spoken music, often to prove a political point or to share a story or to prove a point through the words in the song. A word that I would probably associate it with it off the top of my head would be the word aggressive, but then also when I think about it a bit more, I think that does change. But I think initially when I think of rap music and the stereotypes that instantly pop into my head, aggressive is probably a word that I would associate with it.
I think about black culture, about the black community expressing themselves, their experiences and who they are through music.
For me, might not always necessarily agree or understand the subject matter of the music. That's more of a personal me thing. But in terms of music itself, it's enjoyable. I know a lot of people get put off by the negative connotations of what some rap music is about. I know some people get put off by the kind of people that make rap music sometimes have been involved with criminal activities, and so they're kind of like, well, that's not right, you shouldn't be giving money to those people by listening to their music. But there's plenty of people that haven't. So
it's the voice of our generation. It's the voice of my generation. It's got a lot of potential, and when I say potential, I don't mean that in the sense that hip-hop still hasn't reached its potential. Hip-hop's done a lot. It's moved things forward. It's affected politics. It's affected the way we see ourselves, especially as black people, black and brown people. It's played a huge part in not just the black and brown communities of the world, but all over the world. White, Hispanic, doesn't matter who you are, rap music would have influenced you in some way, because it represents so many things to me. It represents a sense of democracy, it represents a sense of freedom of speech, a boldness to be your authentic self without fear of judgment. It represents a lot of things, and yeah, I just think of liberation, to be honest, when that's the first thing that comes to my mind.
There are two main things that I think about when someone says rap. The first thing is 50 Cent. The image of this American rapper that filled my childhood, always on the TV, his tattoos, his chains, looking pretty gangster. So that's the first image. The second thought is just rhyme, is rap and poetry in motion. And more often than not, I heard it from these American rappers. So it's a mixture of stuff, a mixture of the rap about their life and their struggles, but also a lot of it just was them rapping about how cool they are as well.
Rap gets a bad rap, rightfully. It gets a bad rap for like all the, like its origins are literally from this whole kind of sex, drugs, violence, and like even now, like loads of rap is still like that. Most of rap is still like that. And like that's what it's known for in the world, that's what people see in it. That's what everyone sees rap and they think that.
When I hear rap music, I think of emotion, people's stories. I look at rap music as an art form.
I think I have a bias towards rap because of my family. I love it when Miles gets on stage and does his raps. I love it when Governor B does his rap. I think his raps are so powerful. Casting your anxieties. There's a song he's got out right now about casting your cares on Jesus. It's really powerful. I think different styles of music hit us in different ways, and I think rap is one of the ways in which God can speak to us and minister to us, and we can worship. Yeah, I think it's all these different forms. Of course, you can have a Christian version of rap, and you can have a secular version of rap, and they can be very different.
I think ultimately it's a good thing when rap artists are speaking about God in whatever light it is, because it causes you to think, right? It causes the listener to really think, like, is there even a God? Why is this rapper rapping about him? Is there more meaning to life than just music? So it's interesting. But at the same time, it's going to depend how the rapper is speaking about God, right? Like, is he using it to like compare himself to God and brag? Or is he using it to be like, actually, God is my guide, God is my helper?
If you're making a song about God's grace in one moment in time, and then your next song is about smoking weed, the two just don't add up. It's, being a Christian is not, it doesn't work like that, okay? So that's what, that would be my only reservation, is if the rapper is now rapping about a lifestyle that they don't live.
I'm not too preoccupied with the vessel. God can use anyone. If he could use Apostle Paul, if he could use Jonah and all sorts of imperfect, crazy characters in the Bible, why can't he use imperfect people in the world today? So I don't think it's any different when it comes to artists like Stormzy or Kanye West talking about their faith in one song and talking about some madness in their other songs, because God can use who he wants. And I'm just, to hear people singing Blinded by Your Grace at Glastonbury, or an equivalent big venue like that, God still gets the glory at the end of the day.
Anybody that is willing to put their faith in the front of what they're doing is a good thing, whether they're a musician, whether they're a spoken word artist or a physical paint or clay artist, or whether they're a sports person, or whatever their job is. If they can put faith into that, that's a good thing.
It's a good thing because it brings hope, I think it's a nuanced conversation. We're living in a time where people are struggling, and there's a lot of bad news, and people are down and anxious and depressed, and so hope is really, really important right now. Jesus is really, really important right now. Now, if I'm, I don't know, Susie, that has never been to church before and hasn't heard the gospel, doesn't know anything about Christianity, and I turn on Radio 1 and I hear Stormzy Blinded by Your Grace, and it makes me feel something, it makes me look towards God, I think that can only be a good thing.
The idea that we're perfect is flawed, because Christ never came for perfect people. And in the Bible, nobody was perfect in the Bible. Everybody in the Bible made serious mistakes, and God still used them. So why not with rap artists as well?
There's been many stories throughout all time of religious leaders professing faith through their work, and then in their lifestyle letting people that follow them down. I don't think that's any different. Perhaps the fact that they are so well known, the rap artists or other musical artists bringing in Christian kind of stuff, makes it more difficult for people to understand. It makes it more obvious. I think there's a preacher who once said, the greatest cause of atheism in the world today is Christians who acknowledge Jesus with their mouth, but go and deny him by their lifestyle. That's what an unbelieving world simply finds unbelievable. And so if the reason for them using faith in their music is as an outreach tool, then that has to match up with the lifestyle they live in.
I think it's hella important that normal people feel that they can express their faith through what they normally do. I hate the fact that a lot of people think Christians are, these people who think so good about themselves and, they wear socks and sandals and they're really dry people, but this is real people. Stormzy, Kanye, they are doing what they do and God's involved because God's a big part of their life. It's the same for any other Christian. We are who we are, whether you're a doctor, praying or whatever, it doesn't matter. God is still a big part of our lives, so it's gonna come out. It's the best thing really, it's how we spread the message.
I've got played on Radio 1 and 1 Extra and that kind of stuff. That probably wouldn't have happened 5 years ago. Maybe it's a Stormzy or a Kendrick or a Chance the Rapper talking about Jesus or a Justin Bieber that has made that a bit more palatable. And if so, then great, God's used that. But I think it's an exciting time all round, and I think people need hope and faith in whatever way they can get it. So it's a great time for Christian musicians to rise up and bring that message.
So the main form of worship in church is corporate worship, so people singing together, hymns or more modern songs. I think rap does have a place in church, but not in corporate worship, because practically you're just not going to have 200 people rapping along to Stormzy or Kanye West. However, I think rap is an expression of a gift, the same way a painter might paint a biblical scene. A rapper can do the same thing in a spoken form, so it has a place in the church service for sure.
I think wherever you have people, you kind of have to allow them to be themselves. So if your church has a community of people who creatively express themselves through rap or dance or whatever, then it definitely has a place in that church. I don't think it really makes sense to have a church situated in a community and it doesn't reflect the community that it's in. I think rap definitely has a place in the church because there's people who rap, there's people who love rap, there's people who love music, creatively expressing themselves. So I think it's important to have that representation anywhere.
Obviously, I think there's a place and time for it. It's not. I think because rap is not something that is universally loved, I think it would be difficult to involve it in some sort of Sunday services. But no, I definitely think that there is a place for rap within the church, as long as what they're speaking about is in line with what the church is teaching as well.
I think it's a great way to get people in, especially through events. I think it's a great way to kind of relate to the community in which you are in, because a lot of the connotation of the church is that when it comes to worship, it's all about hymns, it's all about pews, and it's all about standing up correct and not exactly being allowed to loosen up. Whereas if you have some rap in the church, it kind of livens it up a bit. And I think that is what being a Christian is all about, is living that life of joy and happiness and kind of freedom. I think that can be represented through rap.
For some reason, when we get into a church service, for the most part, or a church circle or network or whatever, there only seems to be one or two types of worship. And I love that, I love the acoustic guitars. I love that some of my best friends are worship leaders, the Matt Redmans and Martin Smiths and all that kind of stuff. But I just think there are more expressions of worship that we can explore. When you kind of compare it to the mainstream world, you've got grime and rap that's topping the charts and that kind of stuff. So I think that we've just got to be looking at the fact that there's been a shift in music and there's different styles and different experiences that people want to hear and people are a part of, and try and draw people in that way. So what I'm not saying is I don't want any kind of 4 chords, guitars, throw that stuff out the window. But what I am saying is there's more to explore, man, and there's different styles, and we can only achieve that if we involve different people,
God tells us to make a joyful noise. He doesn't tell us what style of music to do. He doesn't tell us exactly how to do music. If you see how music has changed through history, you'll see that the church has often taken on what is popular in the world, and in some places it's even started what's popular in the world, and other people have followed and caught up. So a lot of people will go, oh well, rap music doesn't have a place in church because it's not like everyone can join in with it. And I'd argue that a lot of young people, a lot of, well, just not old people, can join in with it because they've grown up with it, in the same way as when I was younger, kind of rock, heavy metal kind of Christians, and people go, oh, that's got no place in church, when actually there are people that is the only Christian music they will listen to, because that's what they understand, that's what they connect with, that's how they do faith.
It depends on the church, really. You know, in your church, if there is a multitude of generations and ethnicities and cultural tastes represented in the church, then you have to reflect that in the way you run your services, the way you run your youth services, the way you do everything. You know, the culture of the church should reflect the culture of the individuals within it.
I think even from my personal experience, when I saw like rappers like Governor B or people in the church used to rap and perform, it made me feel like this was real people. It made me feel at home. It made me feel like I can find community here because they like what I like, they do what I do, they're real people. So rap helps people to connect with each other.
I think that church leaders reject gospel rap because of us. What are we doing? What are we doing to approach them to say, actually, this art form, this music, this poetry glorifies God? It's not all about sex and drugs. What we're rapping about is the truth of the gospel, the grace and mercy of God, and it's up to us to show that gospel rap isn't like some other forms of rap. And I think that's why it's rejected, because we're not reaching out to them.
When I think of rap, I think about the culture around it as opposed to the words and the beat. And I think for church leaders, when they hear rap rather than gospel rap, they just focus about the bad influences and the bad kind of culture that rap has grown over the past couple of years. So just because you put gospel in front of it, that doesn't buy it in for them. However, I do think that church leaders need to give it a listen and need to not guard their ears and guard their hearts as much, because there's so much good that can come out through rapping.
God is intentional with culture. A lot of us think that God is intimidated by culture, or in fact, no, a lot of us are intimidated by certain cultures, so we project that insecurity onto our perception of what we think God approves of and what he doesn't approve of. But the truth of the matter is, God is the source of all creativity. So rap as an art form is not the problem, but every culture is made up of imperfect people, and where there's imperfect people, you are bound to have some form of corruption within a community. Just like within the church. Within the church, there's a whole lot of corruption. A lot of the slavery of black people is down to a lot of people in history who claim to be Christians. So we know that the church is a powerful place. It's the life of our society, but it's also been used as a very dark way to manipulate people in the history of our world. So if the church can be like that, if the church can be as messed up as it is, and we still, as believers, try and get people into our churches and try and allow non-believers to see the power of the church, how much more should we be doing that for rap music or for any other culture? If we can do that for the church despite its messy history, then surely we should give some grace to hip-hop as a culture, and in terms of seeing the positive potential of it to reach the people of today.
I think people reject what they don't understand. So I think a lot of people reject it because they just think it's doing too much, or they think it's not in line with, for some reason, biblical principles or whatever. You know, people are hella conservative, but they don't understand that It's just a creative expression of what people do. Because they have this connotations of, oh, if you rap, then you must be selling drugs or something like that. But it's just silly. Like, they just need to get with it.
If we keep it 100, especially in Western society, a lot of that is just the normalization of white culture within churches. Let's just say it as it is. That's why I know of a lot of Africans, especially, who are turned off by Christianity because they see it as a white man's religion and they don't see their culture and their expression being represented in the church. And a huge part of that culture and expression is rap music, if we keep it 100. And so I think there's definitely a racial aspect to it. There's no denying the racial tension within the church, and just the ignorance of rap music is kind of a byproduct of that.
If I'm also honest, why the church sometimes rejects gospel rap is because there's systemic racism in the church. So they reject what has those connotations of the black community.
It's a generational thing as well. We're so used to having an elderly church leader, and usually to get them to see the value of rap ministry is a chore in itself. So
I think people might struggle to include faith in gospel rap because it's like the most intimate thing. Your belief, your relationship with God and your faith and your mental health, they're all personal things. So I think it's hard for anyone to share that.
It's difficult because I want to make content for everyone to enjoy. And I know that when you include your faith, or when you talk about church or something that is not universally agreed on or universally loved, then you lose likes, you lose followers, you lose views, and that's not what you want when you make content. You make content for people to enjoy.
Christians are persecuted for what we believe. People are scared to be rejected by critics, their friendship groups, the public, just in general. People are scared. Fear of rejection is a big thing.
I always had this conviction that I was always meant to point to Jesus through my music. I might not be saying Jesus, the name Jesus, in every single song, but I want people to be able to know that there's something foundational about this, and that's Jesus, and make people want to connect with him. So I've always had that conviction, but I've always been in environments that kind of make that tension a little bit harder. So I remember my first mainstream tour, I went on with an artist, and the artist kind of, after the show, when we got back to the hotel, kind of called me and said, "Do you want to come to my room playing FIFA or whatever?" So I said, "Yeah, I'll go." So I went to his room, and there was FIFA there, but there was also kind of half naked girls and drugs and that kind of stuff. And in that point, it's almost like I had to make a decision of, right, is this for real? Am I just a Christian in the lyrics, or am I allowing my life to reflect what I'm rapping about as well? And I had the decision to make. I could have just went along with it, or I could have said, look, this is not for me. So I said, this is not for me. And it was very embarrassing for me walking out that room. But the next day I had a conversation with the main artist, and he was like, "So why did you walk out, man?" And I got to share about my faith and why I write the music the way I do. And it really, really spoke to him. And so I think I've always had this conviction that God's going to use me to draw people to him. And it's something I can't get away with. I get away from. I always tell people, when you feel that tension, you got to follow the peace. And I think that peace is the Holy Spirit. And whenever I feel uncomfortable, I know that it's probably not what I'm meant to be doing.
If it truly is gospel rap, it's got the gospel at the centre, which is a message of love, of acceptance, of reaching out to those people that need more than we. It should be championing equality, whether it's to do with class, whether it's to do with race, whether it's to do with your sex or sexuality. It'll be championing equality through the gospel message. Then it is doing the right thing, and it will have a positive impact. It's only going to happen if the words of the music is reflected in the lifestyle of the people. And if that doesn't match up, then there will be a moment where people go, well, how can you sing about this loving God and not show it in the way that you live your life? And that's where the rubber will hit the road, and it will have a negative impact because people will be turned off from following what the message was meant to convey.
I think rap can be great for society and a non-Christian environment because it's a different way of sharing the gospel. Everyone loves rap. I believe it's the most popular genre of music ever. So therefore, why not use that for good? Why not use that to showcase to people that their lives can be different? Why not use it to positively impact people that are in dark situations? I think that lyrics can change people's lives. And I think if people talk about it, conversations change cultures.
Through this music, through the platform of gospel rap, more people are being exposed to the teachings of the Christian faith. More people are being exposed to what being a Christian is actually all about, which I think is a really, really good thing. So I think for a non-Christian society, for a culture that is not massively Christian anymore, I think it's really great that through gospel rap, through this really popular platform of music, that the Christian message is being shared. And I think that's a really good thing.
It's about relationship, and relationships have its ups and downs, and so music is a perfect art form to actually to express that.
I don't see that a style of music cannot be bad in itself. It can be used in a bad way. But the fact that some people use one style of music, rock music can be used in a good way or a bad way. Any type of music. Hymns, you can make up terrible hymns if you wanted to. I don't think a style of music is good or bad. It's the heart behind it and the words.
What you planned for evil, God planned for good. So what the world planned for evil, like what the world has created for evil, right, which is rap in all its, like all the kind of sinful things that it's about, God takes that evil thing and he uses it for good. And that to me is what Christian rap is. This thing which was evil when it was in the world, but then we make it part of God's plan. We make it something good that God uses to get his gospel out. And if there are people who wouldn't normally hear the gospel who are hearing it, but all they're doing is they're hearing it over a dope beat and some sick bars, then where's the problem? I think that's amazing. And that's the beautiful thing about Christian rap.
I think maybe people see more gospel rap, they'll be like, oh, rap isn't just for certain people. Rap is an expression, it's an art form, it's music. It doesn't have to be tied to a certain image.
What's better? For Kanye West to be bragging about the amount of money and women and power that he has, or for Kanye West to be like rapping about the struggles that he has in life and how he has overcome them, and rapping about freedom from addiction and mental health and things like that. I know which one sounds better to me.